Hello again, and welcome to Media War Stories, behind-the-scenes tales from the front lines of the media. I am your host, Tom Curley. How are you all today? Welcome to what I believe is our 53rd show, which means absolutely nothing. But here to do our 53rd show is, of course, my partner in crime, Mr. Garry Armstrong. Look, the font even worked. Garry, 53. Wow, my God. Soon we will get to our
believe it.
age.
53 shows? That's amazing.
I know. I know. Who would have thought we'd have this much bullshit? Speaking of which, okay, here's the weirdest thing, and I don't have an answer for it. We normally, all right, we get viewers. As I've said, many tens of people watch us, every
Right.
week. But last week's show, which was show 51, we haven't aired
Right.
52 yet. While we're
Right.
making this, got 4 times the viewership in 4 days.
Wow.
I know,
Wow.
and I have no idea. I haven't posted it on my. I mean, I think the only advertising it got was from Marilyn's blog, which we know has has a fantastic viewership. But what's the deal? It was a good show. You were talking about the mob and the guy who
Right.
was the inspiration for The Godfather, and I mean it was a good show, but
Yeah.
anyway, thank you all. Thank you all for watching.
I can't,
Really
I
appreciate
can't put
it.
my finger on it.
Yeah. So
I'm thrilled about
before
it.
so am I. So am I. So before we start today's show, I wanna talk about something. I want to promote something. It's a project
Okay.
that I've been working on for quite a while now, and the backstory of this is fascinating. It's up on our YouTube channel, and it's free to watch. And I think it's very important. It's a show called Between Americans, and it's a dialogue about America, what it is like to be an American. Okay,
Right.
and the backstory of this is what is so fascinating, which is this was a radio play done in 1941 on the CBS radio network by a guy named Norman Corwin, okay, who was,
Right.
people today wouldn't know who he is, but he was a very famous writer and director
Yes.
in for CBS, okay? And on July 4th, 1941, 4th of July, he then had a series called 26 by Corwin. And the July 4th show was called Between Americans. And it had a narrator. And America was very divided in 1941.
Right.
We hadn't gotten into the war yet. There was extreme polarization. You had a huge Nazi movement. You had a huge right-wing Nazi movement in America. Rachel Maddow's done stories about it. And the point of the show was to bring the tone down and have Americans talk to each other calmly about what it is to actually be an American. Okay?
Right.
And it was very well received. So now Orson Welles heard the show and he liked it. So he called Norman and he said, I would like to do that show. Do I have your permission? And Norman said, sure, go ahead, knock yourself out. So he got sidetracked. He was filming and editing The Magnificent Ambersons at the time.
Right.
So by the time that he got around to doing his version of Between Americans, which is the same script, just a different cast, in this case, the Mercury Theater, it aired by coincidence on December 7th, 1941.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. It was the only non-news program on that day. And they were frantically sort of rewriting it to address, well, now we're in war. Maybe it's a good time to discuss what it is to be an American. And you
Yeah.
fast forward into the 2000s, Norman Corwin, who is now in his 90s, he lived to be 102, I believe, called a friend of mine, Richard Fish, who he had worked with, and said, I want to redo a show that I did in 1941 called Between Americans. Okay? And for 5 years, he said, I want to update the script because I think it's relevant to what was going on in 2002. All right? And he was right.
Right.
Well, it took 5 years for them to finally finalize the script. And then it took Rich another 5 years to produce it. He finally got the money together, got a lot of people. It's narrated by David Ossman of the Firesign Theater. And they produced it as a radio play. He asked me to make a video of it. And I did. At first, I made a video. It wasn't really that good because he said he didn't want the video to be very fancy because it would distract from the audio. He's one of those theater of the mind guys. And I tried to tell him, I said, if you do a video supersedes audio. We get 90% of our input from our eyes. And if you're going to do a video, you have to keep the people focused on what's being said. So over the last couple of months, I revisited this project because when you listen to it, you would swear to God that it is written for today. It is so relevant to what is going on right now. It is more relevant than when it was in 2002 and 1941. And part of it is, what it is to be a patriot. And I have been upset lately because I think patriotism has been hijacked by the right. Every time I see some guy in a truck with an American flag, my first thought is not patriot. Ugh, one of those jerk redneck right-wing MAGA morons. Okay? I'm sorry.
Right.
And Jon Stewart did a rant on it. I think last week or the week before. It's like, stop hijacking patriotism.
Yes, we saw
I'm
that.
not
You're right.
Right. I'm not a commie. I'm just a normal guy. I like the flag. I like patriotism. I believe in democracy. All right. I'm an old hippie from the 60s, but I still want democracy. So, and the interesting thing about this is that it's upgraded with pictures and stuff. But the narration, the basic script is fundamentally unchanged since 1941. So we'll just play you just the opening couple of minutes to give you an idea what it's like. And remember, this was a radio play done in the 1940s. This is done in the style that radio was in the 1940s. Okay? So check this out.
This program is Between Americans. That's where the title comes in. We hope you like it, but you don't have to. At any rate, nobody's going to make you stick around and listen to it. That's one of the advantages of being an American. We invite you to think that one over for a moment, and while you're exercising your inalienable right to tune us out or let us ride, we'll help ourselves to a little music. Maestro, the overture, please. Now, that was an American composition, but boy, it sure did go all over the map, didn't it? But then mixing in different strains has never bothered real Americans. Not when we've got states named after French kings and English queens, or lifted right out of the Spanish language like Nevada, or out of ancient Latin like Montana. Or take Vermont. That's French for Green Mountain. For green, for mountain. They call it the Green Mountain State, don't they? You know, if we were to hold a convention of all the people who live in foreign sounding American towns, we could fill quite a sizable stadium.
Wow.
So there you get just a taste. Yeah, you
Oh
get just a
my.
taste. Just the opening thing. You don't have to listen to it. That's one of
It's
the great things
yeah,
about being an American, right? As opposed to,
right.
I have my freedom of speech. You're denying me my freedom of speech, which is you have to listen to anything that I say, no matter how much you dislike it. No, that's not what it's about. Not what it's about at all.
Right.
But anyway, it's on the YouTube channel. I encourage everybody watch the whole thing. It's fascinating. It's educational. The next piece there just goes to show all the people from towns. I'm from Tokyo, Kansas. I'm from Madrid, Utah. It's just fascinating.
It takes your breath away, and mentally it it makes you just shake your head. You know, we I'm not going to allow us to do what we normally do. Actually, we are doing that. We are going to talk about one thing, and that is
Yeah,
trials. You
trials.
could
Yes.
run, you could run what you just what you're talking about on tonight's news. Just take that 2 minute just slice you played for us,
Hmm.
and just
I
run it
know, and it
at the
was.
top or the middle of tonight's network news, and it would be so applicable.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book that talk, and this is making a point. I'm reading a book right now written by Nick Clooney, the father of George Clooney. Nick was a movie type and reporter, and he talks about what it was like to be in this country in 1939, 1940, 1941, when not everyone was behind, I want to say behind the president, but not everyone was really in favor of going to war against Germany. There were a lot of people who were isolationist and thought they had spent too much of their lives in the depression, and they didn't want to go out and fight on another soil. They thought they had just lost enough, and so there were people, despite the propaganda movies that were coming out, there were people who still thought we don't want to go to war. And so there was a lot of yelling and screaming and shouting. And I'm sure that's one of the ways the piece you just played, I think, touched the minds of many people back in the 40s. You could also play it in the 70s when the country was split on Vietnam. Now, I remember what it was like when people were saying just what you were saying. It's our right to be Americans, and why are we going to Vietnam? And the flip side is because we're Americans, we're going to Vietnam. And doing pieces that people got so incensed about. If I had had
Hmm.
access to the thing you just played, I wouldn't have had to do anything except what you did: intro it, let it play, and outro it. So it is very, very timely. People are screaming about, obviously, right now in the Middle East. John Stewart set the example for us a couple of weeks ago. Uh, People scream without thinking. People postulate all of these behavioral arguments about this is right and this is wrong, and they don't understand how complex it is, how complex our nation is,
Yes.
and the people that make it
Yes.
up. So I just give you props on that. I mean, it's a big wow.
But, yeah, good. No, it's really impressive. And again, I for years one of the things that's always bugged me is the difference between patriotism and nationalism. And there is a difference, okay? Patriotism is I want my country to be the best that it can be. All right? Nationalism is my country, love it or leave it. It's they treat it like
Right,
the United States is a sports team, and you support it even when they're having a bad season, even when there's
right.
a thing like the former clown, who's to my I have no idea why is still running for office, And one of the things that the far right used to like to do, I don't know if they still do, but I remember it was very big during Vietnam. They would say, "My country, right or wrong," right? I'm
Right.
sure you remember that. That was a very Now, the
Absolutely. Yes.
interesting thing, they actually think that is not a nationalist quote. It is actually a quote that's very patriotic because
Yes.
the right didn't tell the whole quote. The whole quote is "My country, right or wrong. When it's right, keep it right. When it's wrong, make it right." And they
Exactly.
cut that half off. Okay, so again, I've had it with people. I think it's time for the rest of the country to take democracy back. I mean, we say we're this. Look, we've been covering elections. Like I said, I've been covering them since Nixon. You've been covering them since before. Every election is the most important election in history, except this time it actually is. And I think
Right.
people will come around. This is what is called the silly season in a presidential campaign. As the summer comes, you're going to hear more and more crazy stuff, and we're not going to go talk about polls because polls are all. I'm sorry, just they're always wrong. They always will be, and but nonetheless, people do it. But you did ask me earlier. We'll talk about trials. What did I think about the current trial that's going on in New York, where what did Jimmy Kimmel call him? Oh, Don. Well, he's been called Don Corleone from the tax thing case, and Don. I don't remember it. Snoozy McSnoozeface. So what bothers me? I mean, I'm excited about this trial. One, the way the media is covering it, and for the most part, they're getting it wrong. I listen to these guys called the Midas Touch, and they have a podcast called Legal AF. I highly recommend it. These guys are lawyers, Ben Meiselas and Michael Popak, and Karen Friedman at Nifolo. She used to be the #2 prosecutor for the Manhattan DA's office. And they give you the legal breakdown of everything that's going on. And when you listen to the mainstream media, well, this jury selection could go on for months. We may never get to this trial. Meanwhile, these three are going, they'll probably have a trial done by the end of the week. That more often than not, they'll probably start opening arguments on Monday. Well, on Monday, oh my God, this is going to take weeks. On Tuesday, we've already got 7 jurors. So,
Yeah.
they were right. But, it's much more fun on the mainstream media to say, oh my God, this could take forever. Why? To get us all hot and bothered. And of course, now Trump is livid that the trial is going so fast. And the other thing that drives me crazy about this trial, and I think it's going to be way more impactful than the media is trying to make it. And I hear this from my friends. They go, "Oh, well, that trial isn't as important as the other ones." To which I go, we have a hierarchy of trials here. How about the fact this guy is under so many indictments that we're going, oh, well, that trial is really important, but the hush money trial, it's not so big a deal. So who really cares? He broke the law. And again, the interesting thing is this is not a hush money case, which the judge has pointed out to the jury. And the media is finally beginning to understand. This is not about paying off a porn star. Hush money is perfectly legal. What he did is you can do that. The point was, it was one, the way he hid the payments, which is a misdemeanor, okay. But more importantly, why he did it was to influence the 2016 election. Because you could very easily make the point that had that come out, because this was right after the Hollywood tape where he said he can grab women by the hoo-ha and he can get away with it. Well, and then, of course, he survived it. And, you got to go back to 2016 when we were still sort of normal. We still sort of had norms. And, we would figure that a revelation like that would knock any other politician out. And when you track to today, oh, well, we
Right.
don't care if this guy gets convicted and go to jail. We'll still vote for him. All right. But back then, when there was some form of normalcy, it could reasonably be argued that had this come out, he could have lost. He only won by 80,000 votes over 5 swing states. That's 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 like less than 1%, which should have
Right.
called recounts, which it did in every state. So had this come out that he was having sex with a porn star while his wife was at home with their newborn, that he was having an affair with a Playboy Playmate for a year while his wife was pregnant, I think this might have swayed enough people to have turned the election around. So, he did violate campaign finance laws. And I also think that when all this comes out again, it's granted his base apparently upright, religious, devout Christian evangelicals don't seem to have any problem with this guy breaking every commandment and then inventing a few more to break just for the hell of it. So it's going
Yes.
to be
Yes.
interesting. It's going to go along. And the other thing that struck me was, well, he keeps falling asleep. So there goes the whole Sleepy Joe, trying to make Biden.
Right.
He's old and he's infirm, and this guy can't stay awake during his own criminal trial. The fact that the judge yelled at him, and apparently he was just completely taken aback and livid. For the first time in his life, he's not in control. He is not in control. He may think that he is, but he
Exactly.
isn't.
Exactly.
And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And there was a juror. She didn't get picked, but she said it was jarring seeing him in person, because she had this vision. She only sees him on TV. He's this larger than life figure, but here
Right.
he was just a guy. He was just an ordinary schlub sitting in a chair. E. Jean Carroll said the same thing when she finally confronted him. She was terrified to see him after all these years, and when she saw him, it was nothing. He was just a nobody. So hopefully, I think this trial will have more of an impact than the media is trying to give you credit for. So that's my
I
take.
hope you're right. Now, I'm sitting here listening to you, and what you have said is right on the mark, but it's taken you, I don't know how many minutes to explain it. It's like peeling it away layer by layer by layer. Now, keep in mind that it's so much more exciting to talk about the trial as hush money for an adult film actress. I mean, that's going to grab all the people who uh, enjoy hearing that kind of tabloid stuff, and they can understand that. But if they listen to how you peeled it away and say, this is what it's really all about, that means they have to think about it. It's a bit too much complicated for them. It's not enjoyable. And I'm sure the reporters who are covering it, and we're talking about network, not the young reporters on a local level, they know. But I'm sure they've argued with their editors that this is what it's really about. And they've been told, no, stick with the hush money, stick with the porn actress. This is what will get us ratings. And so we're sitting here
Yep.
all across America hearing this and absorbing this and wondering, will he get nailed for it? And of course, we know how often previous presidents have committed adultery and other crimes, and it's just become history. So there's nothing really different about this. And you rightfully put this in perspective. But so many people want to say, oh, that's so complicated. What are you, an elitist leftist trying to spoil our fun listening to this? We know that the guy, he pulled his pants down. He did it with this actress who does dirty movies, and he shouldn't have been doing that. But people at large hold your conversations outside, and they'll tell you, well, he can't be trusted because he messes around with these kinds of people. People don't understand how complicated it is. They don't want to take the time to think
Yes,
about it.
yes. nobody likes nuance, and nobody likes nuance less than the media. And sad, and we're only saying this because we were in it. We saw it. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
if you know, I mean, there's a reason why it bleeds, it leads. It's also, does it have good video? I mean, is it something interesting?
Right.
If it's something where you got to come up with a bunch of boring charts, however, but I'm
Yeah.
having said that, it is changing. The narrative of this trial is changing, and when you look at it from 1,000 feet, it seems like a joke because let's face it. Here's what's happening: a playmate, a porn star, and a guy named Pecker walk into a courtroom. If that isn't the opening to a joke, I don't know what is. But
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I mean, the head of the National Enquirer, who is responsible for all these catch and kills,
Yeah.
who's going to be testifying, is a guy named Pecker. You you can't make this up.
You
I
can't.
mean,
You can't.
what the hell? But so anyway, well, anyway, it will be fun to watch. It will be fun to see. He has to be there, and it's going to drive him crazy. And you can see it's wearing him down. I mean,
Yes.
and I think it would wear anybody down. And what I love is them trying to spin this. This is great. We're going to run on this. We're going to run on the fact that this man had sex with a porn star while his wife was home with their newborn child. This is good for us. Now, sadly, for his base, I don't know. It's a feature. It's not a bug.
Yeah.
But as I tell
The look on
Ellen,
his face, the look on his face as he spoke, I guess it was both before and after the trial yesterday or the day before yesterday, it doesn't matter. You can see the physical toll it's taken on him. So you're right. I mean, he's really dealing with this for the first time, I think, in his life, where he just can't stomp on it and walk away with a smile on his face. It's really taken a toll on him,
right?
and maybe that's the
It's also
story.
Oh no, it is becoming the story. What will be in the first? All right. The other interesting thing is I love this judge. He's doing his job. Apparently, Trump started to make noises. One of the jurors, they're going through their social media, and one of the jurors or potential jurors had posted a Facebook thing 4 years ago where she was outside. She's a New Yorker. And there was a giant, when Biden was announced the winner in New York City, there were huge celebrations. Thousands of people came out and partied. It was a fun time. And she just filmed it. She walked out. She was, as she said, she said she was out doing her alternate side of the street parking. She was moving her car. And anybody that lives in New
Right.
York totally gets alternate side of the street parking. Your whole life
Oh
is
yeah,
run
yeah.
by having to move your car every other day. And she saw this celebration and she thought it was cute, so she filmed it and she posted it on her Facebook page. Well, this apparently made him furious, and he gestured and said something, and the judge shut him down and saying, this
Right.
is unacceptable. But what's better is the way he shut him down. He didn't yell at Trump. He yelled at the lawyer. He said, "Get your client under control." In other words, he
Right.
didn't even address, because Trump is not he's a defendant. And in
Right.
court, you tell the lawyer, "Get your client under control or I will."
Right.
And this is just jury selection. This is only on day 2. So it's going to be interesting. And the real question is, are they going to put him in jail? There's a jail cell down the hall. It's a holding cell, which is for clients that get rowdy,
Right.
or defendants that get rowdy, or contempt. And they're all going, "Oh, you couldn't put him in jail because of his Secret Service." No, it's a holding cell down the hall. Absolutely, you could. The Secret Service guy gets to stand outside or sit inside with
Yeah.
them. I mean, sucks to be that Secret Service agent, but too bad. Who cares? And I think that he will do it. And of course, the whining and the screaming after that will be horrible. The other thing is the incredible protests outside the hordes of Trump supporters who are going to storm the courtyard. Turns out, no, not really. Yeah, there was a few, a couple with their big flags, but they were peaceful.
Yeah.
And it was just as many, So yeah, this is not going to happen. So it's going to be interesting. And we'll probably be able to, yeah, it is. And we did it again. We meant to get to other things, but this was fun. It was,
it's hard to ignore this.
It was a diversion. No, we can't, and I don't think we should. I really don't. I agree. I've had it. And I think I still don't understand how we live in a world where people can say that this guy can win, and I know that he could. It just makes no sense. You voted him out the last time.
Why didn't you, before we leave, Tom? Why don't you plug that project you were talking about, the Between Americans?
Between Americans. Check it out. Matter of fact, that's going to be part of our plugs from now on. And speaking of plugs, let's get to them. Serendipity, seeking intelligent life on Earth. It's getting harder and harder all the time. Voicescapes Audio Theater got a performance coming up this Saturday at the Warner Library in Harris, Tarrytown, New York. Going to have a lot of fun having a guest star. Of course, a half-hour radio show is still around. Love it. My sister podcast, Get Off My Lawn, with me, where we talk about life, the universe, and everything. So, Gary, this has been interesting. We'll continue the trial stuff next week because you have some interesting trial stories with some very famous people. But until then, see ya.